So I killed a kit. This was an old Scrapping for Less kit that I have had in my stash, and because it was Valentine's Day theme, I decided to use it, and I used it up. And I made a ton. Hi guys, it's Beth. Welcome. I have a goal to use up at least 6 kits this calendar year. And I have primarily a bunch of old Scrapping for Less kits, since Scrapping for Less isn't around anymore. And I really love their kits, and I hoarded them for a long time. And now I've decided that it's really time to use them up. So I found one that was Valentine's theme, and so I thought I would work on using that one up. And I started the kit right before the beginning of the month, making 2 sets of sheet loads for the February 2022 sheet load of cards. So you've seen these. I will link the video down below if you'd like to know more information. But I made 2 sets of these cute little Woof You Be Mine cards, and that used up pretty much the first collection. So if you don't know, or if you've never heard of the Scrapping for Less kits, they were amazing kits, and they had 4 different collections within each kit. And so each collection had a different paper theme and embellishment theme, stamp theme, everything. It was kind of all the same theme within that collection, but you may have 4 slightly different themes within each kit. So with that, I had enough left to make 1 scrap card. And this is, I don't have the card sketch pulled out, but it is Operation Right Home, sketch number 154. It's one I use all the time. And I had enough to cut down 4 little 1.5-inch squares of scraps down into my squares to fit on my white mat here, and then just backed it on a red stitched card mat. And then down here I used the Puppy Hugs and Kisses that was also part of the stamp set that I used to make my sheet loads with. It was part of this collection. So I got a bunch of cards out of that particular collection, and I was kind of in sheet load mode. So I decided, I feel like I cheated a little bit, because I decided a quick and effective but great way to use up this kit would be continue with the sheet loads. So I went through all of my old sheet load sketches that I had printed out and in my stash, and pulled out the ones that used the 6x6 paper, just because I figured that would be an easy place to start. And I figured there were some other sketches I might be able to use if I didn't like those 6x6 editions, but I pulled out the 6x6, and figured out which ones might work with each of the different collections. So next I went to the August 2020 sheet load sketch, and this was a really pretty collection. It wasn't overly Valentine's Day. It did have kind of like a Valentine's themey stamp set that went with it. It's the Would You Be Mine stamp set, but the papers didn't scream Valentine's Day. And so I decided to kind of make an all occasion card set. I loved the wood grains with the florals and the polka dots and the stripes. So I pulled out an old stamp set that I had that had just kind of a variety of sentiments on it. And so I have Hello Friend, Thinking of You, Happy Birthday, a different style of Happy Birthday, and then Thanks. And so it makes a really pretty card set, and I will probably end up selling this one in our shop or at craft shows. But it went together quick and easy, and then I did put scraps on the inside, and I didn't really have many scraps left from this one at all. And this, one of the good things about Alicia's or Call Me Crafty Owl's sheet loads, especially the 6x6 ones, a lot of times you can use up the whole piece of the 6x6 making the cards. So like whatever there may be just a tiny bit that you don't use on the actual card front, and it's perfect to throw on the inside of the card. So that was collection number 2. So for, I think the next one I did was this one, which had a really pretty combination of light pink, navy, and gold. And so I pulled out the July 2020 sheet load sketch and created these. They're kind of like a fun fold, but not really. It's just the front is shorter than the back. And so it's not really a special fold. It's just you trim off an inch of the front of the card. And then you get to see the pattern that's on the inside as well as the pattern that's on the outside. So for this one, I brought in kind of like a gold matte cardstock that I had and used that as mats for the card. And then I also was actually out of my nice heavy white cardstock that I used for bases, but I had a bunch of navy heavy duty cardstock. And so I pulled it out to use as my bases, and then just added some white paper on the inside so that there's actually a place to write a little note. And so because the navy was slightly different than, you know, some of the navies that are in the patterns, I backed it with the gold just to kind of as a separation. And the gold is also slightly different than the gold that's in the patterns, but for some reason I was okay with that. I felt better about that than the navies. I don't know why. And then I did a little bit of embossing, heat embossing with my sentiment. I brought in some gold embossing powder. And then the sketch had called for like a little thread circle, like a little nest of thread here. And I don't really have any great thread to do that with. And so I just used some of the scraps from that gold cardstock and die cut some little scalloped hearts to add at the top. So that is how these look. And I just tried to make sure that I used 2 different patterns on each part of the card front. So again, quick and easy, but these I feel like turned out very elegant. And then the 4th collection that I used was a Doodlebug collection, and I loved the colors combination of like pinks, like a aqua, and red. And so I pulled out the November 2021 sheet load to use for this collection, and just went through and cut down all my parts and then kind of mixed and matched as I put it together. And I did use a dark pink cardstock as a mat on this one, just to, some of the patterns were more of a white background and I wanted those to pop off. And so I just used that pink cardstock on a mat for all of them. And then I just went ahead and stayed with the pink to mat all of my individual layers. And then I used that Happy Valentine's Day sentiment again that I also used on that last collection. And it was from one of the collections, and this was Sentiments of the Heart, which also came in the kit, and I really liked that Happy Valentine's Day font. So that's how I did this one. And then I had some scraps of that pink left, and so I just went in and die cut a little heart just to add a little pop of color in there. I was really digging that dark pink. It's my favorite shade of pink, so I decided just to keep going with it. So again, just tried to vary the patterns. And then again, on the insides, I have a scrap of pattern paper. And I forgot to show you, I had just a few scraps from that collection. And so I kind of just threw those all together on this card. Took 2 of the strips that I had. This was more of a square piece. And this was actually from that very first collection that had like the dog theme. And then just brought in a strip of scrap cardstock that was still on my desk, and then a red card mat. So this one was just trying to use up everything from that Doodlebug collection as well as that piece left from that the dog collection. And that's the inside. From the gold, pink, and navy one, I did have a lot of scraps left. And so I came up with a couple different card designs. Most of my scraps were like these strips that were, let me see, just shy of 2, or right around 2 inches. And so I decided to just kind of combine those together on a card mat, and I did bring in some more of navy cardstock to be a mat, just to kind of give the background something. And then I had some strip scraps of that gold cardstock left, so I decided to go ahead and throw them on here as well. I knew I wanted something to kind of go across the horizontally to kind of tie the 2 vertical strips together, and then just decided to go with a circle sentiment that I could put on top of those strips. So this is just an old stamp set I have, and then I matted it on some navy as well. And then I had used some of that gold I just used the scraps and die cut a bunch of hearts, and so I just threw a heart down there in the bottom corner, and then there's just random scraps on the insides of these cards. So layout is the same, the patterns are different, and the strips are different. It was just using whatever strips I had on my desk at the time. This one, I thought it looked better on gold, and so I didn't have a big enough piece of the gold cardstock that I used in my cards, like that kind of matte gold, and so I went with more of a mirror gold on this one, and then added a little scallop behind my sentiment, and then also, to stay consistent, I just added a little die cut heart from some of that mirror scrap. So then this one used up all the little strips that I had left, and so I just put them on a piece of 5 3/8 by 4 1/8 inch white cardstock, for what I would use for a card mat, and then just threw adhesive over the whole thing, and then laid my strips kind of at a diagonal. And then I had one of these, I had stamped some extra of the Valentine's Day and embossed them, just because I always seem to mess up, and so I always like to have extra of the embossed sentiments. And so I just put it on a scrap of that gold mat, and then I had 2 hearts that I had die cut out of scraps, and then I had another little gold heart die cut that I threw down here, and then from another old Scrapping for Less kit that I had used years ago, I still had some 1 or 2 hearts left on a little strip that came in one of the kits, and so I was down to 1 heart left that was still on my desk. So I was like, oh, it actually goes, because it goes with that pink up here, so just decided to use it up on there, added it right, fit perfect in that gold heart down there. So again, random shape scrap on the inside. So I ended up with 5 complete sets of cards from Sheet Loads, plus a whole bunch of kind of miscellaneous from scrap. So what did we get? 5, 11, 17, 23, 29, 34 cards. Hopefully I didn't count one twice. Here's what I have left. Here's all the stamp sets that came in the kit, and this one had a fun love die that I didn't have a chance to use yet. And then a stencil, another little stamp set. And then I didn't use a whole lot of the embellishments because I didn't want any more dimension. I was already using a lot of layers, and so I didn't want a ton more dimension. So there's a bunch of little embellishment wood hearts, some stickers, some enamel drops, and then this is a die cut left from the pet collection, and then some hearts. And if you watched my Smash Our Stash video, I made a lace and ribbon wall hanging, and it's kind of an off-white, and I may actually glue this on there. I think it would go perfect. It's got that vintagey boho vibe to it, so I may use those on something else. But so I know several people after my sheet load video said they had this collection in their stash. Hopefully that gives you some inspiration to use it up. Oh, and then I did have some scraps that I just did some die cuts out of. I can always use hearts. So here are all the cards I made. Fun and quick sheet loads. Again, I felt like I was cheating because the sheet loads make it so easy to make a batch of cards, but I also knew I wanted to get this done and out before Valentine's Day. So here it is, 4 days before. But I wanted to give you guys some inspiration if you have this particular kit from Scrapping for Less or something similar, that you could use it for Valentine's Day as well. But thank you guys so very much for your time today, and I hope you all have a very crafty day.